We need in every community a group of angelic troublemakers.
Social justice, power word, power word, power word. Social justice, power word, power word, power word.
Good evening to our East Coast, good afternoon to our friends on the West Coast, and good in-between times to our friends in the in-between spaces, which we still find ourselves more and more these days. And we are here for you in community. Welcome to the Social Justice Power Hour. Welcome to the BRCSJ Center for Social Justice virtual headquarters. My name is Robert Schreiber. I'm the chief activist here and your host for this evening, as I have been for the past over 180 some odd shows, and most of them very odd indeed. Tonight's going to be a good one. We're going to have a really meaningful and entertaining conversation with our guest, Evan Handler. And I'm very excited about it. There's a lot to talk about. So thanks for being with us. As always, you being with us in community is the really essential part for this thing to work. So thank you for joining us tonight. Before we start our conversation, of course, there are a couple of things I want to talk to you about. And the first thing is I want to congratulate the folks that made the Time 100 must-read list, which was put out yesterday. And on that 100 books that were listed, all of them fantastic books, obviously. Well, most of them probably. But four of the authors that have previously been on the show, we want to congratulate Martha Jones, who wrote The Great Vanguard, Michael Arsenault, who wrote I Don't Want to Die Poor, Talia Lavin, who's going to be on in the future, who wrote Culture Warlords, and of course, Dr. Peniel Joseph, who came on the show, wrote The Sword and the Shield, which is a great comparison of Malcolm X and Martin Luther King. He's become a good friend to the show, and actually, in the interim, has also become a board member to the center. So congratulations to all those folks. We wanted to just give them a shout out because we're really proud of them and the service they've provided our community. And also coming up in the show, we just confirmed this today. We're pretty psyched about this. You know him, you love him, you've seen him in all the news shows in the past couple of weeks. Lieutenant Governor from Pennsylvania, John Fetterman, is going to be with us. You've seen him have a few minutes here and there in sound bites. I am so excited to hear what he can say, given a full hour uncensored. So I'm looking forward to that one, everybody, and please join us. That'll be just next Wednesday. And then coming up in the future, tomorrow night, we have the incredible Jill Sobule. Jill Sobule, you know her, you love her from I Kissed a Girl and Supermodel, self-professed two-hit wonder, but she is so much more than that. She is utterly delightful, and she'll be in concert tomorrow night, and she'll, of course, if Jill's going to be here, our special guest will be co-hosting with me. Mike Hotpence will be back with us as well. So please join us for that. It's going to be a great show tomorrow night. A lot of fun and wonderful music. Patton Oswalt will be with us next week. As David Letterman would say these days, a man who needs no introduction. Kurt Anderson, who is the co-founder of Spy Magazine, the host of Studio 360, and he is the man who basically started the fight with Donald Trump decades ago. He was the first one to call him a short-fingered vulgarian, so a perfect person to come back and put the postscript on this man's tenure. Also the author, of course, of Evil Geniuses, The Unmaking of America. Maggie Smith will be with us, poet extraordinaire. So excited to share an inspirational evening with her. Dr. Monique Morris will be with us, the founder of Black Girl Freedom Fund. Pete Souza, who had 2 tenures at the White House as official White House photographer under Ronald Reagan and under Barack Obama. He'll be coming at you with his favorite photographs from his time there and the behind-the-scenes stories. And if you haven't seen the film The Way I See It, it's playing out at MSNBC. We strongly recommend it. Franklin Leonard, who was the creator of The Blacklist. As I mentioned before, Talia Levin is going to be with us, the author of Cultural Warlords. And finally, this is wonderful, Diane Casel, who is a Supreme Court Justice in New York, who wrote this great book. She can bring us home. Dr. Dorothy Bolden Farabee, civil rights pioneer. She was a doctor, a daughter of slaves, an incredible pioneer in the movement, someone who is underappreciated and unrecognized. We can't wait to bring her name and amplify her voice. So all those folks are coming at you. We have a couple other surprises in store. So be here every night at 7 p.m., 4 p.m. Pacific at the Power Hour. We promise to bring you, it's not a matter of how well-known a guest is, it's a matter of how much community we can share. But tonight we have actor, author, and self-professed as well, inspirational pessimist. Evan Handler has appeared on literally every TV show he ever watched, including but not limited to 6 Feet Under, Friends, Law and Order, The West Wing, Miami Vice, Sex and the City, Lost, 24, Californication, and Power. There's a bunch of movies too. You know this guy, sometimes you love him, sometimes not so much, but he's also the author of 2 highly acclaimed books, each detailing different aspects of his exceptionally long-term survival of a supposedly incurable leukemia, originally diagnosed in 1985, my friends. These 2 books are Time on Fire, My Comedy of Terrors, and It's Only Temporary, The Good News and the Bad News of Being Alive. But mayhaps his greatest role is that of advocate, activist, and rabble-rouser, using his celebrity and his platform to raise up the voice of others and trying to do nothing short of preserving our freaking democracy. So without further ado, my friends, welcome to our virtual stage, Evan Handler. Evan, thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thank you, Robert. That's a lineup of heavy hitters you have coming up. Jill Sobule is a friend. When we moved into this house 5 years ago, we looked for houses in Los Angeles for 12 years, and we finally bought one about 5 years ago. And the first thing I thought when we moved into this house, because it has 2 doors that open into a yard, and I said, you could have a concert here. And finally, about I guess a year later or so, we had Jill Sobule played a concert at our house as a benefit post election of Donald Trump, in the days of just beginning to raise money for resistance. Jill came and gave a concert here and has been a buddy for some years.
Wow, that's I love those connections. When I feel like that is the serendipity of community, coming together. Jill is incredible, and the way we met Jill was that Mike Hotpence, who is delightful, went to a charity event that was held by Liz Winstead, who also was a guest on the show. He brought Jill on to a variety hour that he put together for us. And then, of course, I'm a kid from Brooklyn, so I always make the ask. And I asked her if she would do something else, and she came on, did this wonderful concert and conversation, and now she's a wonderful member of our community. It's really a thrill. It's really special.
Yeah, Jill's fantastic. I mean, Jill is a great singer-songwriter and musician. We've seen her. My wife and I have seen her a number of times. She plays out here at there's a guitar shop, McCann's, that has a small venue in a back room. I've seen her, in New York and all around, and Jill is great. That's
wonderful. I'll definitely send you regards. What a wonderful chance. I am so thrilled, my friend. I asked you to be on the show months ago, and you were traveling and doing all sorts of stuff. I'm not going to get into your personal business, but you came right aboard and said, "Sure, I'd love to do it, but I'm doing all this stuff." And I had to court you, and there was a lot of flirting, and there's a lot of waiting. And then I guess it was about a month back. My solace for this quarantine is getting on the elliptical and watching The West Wing. And you showed up on my screen, and I said, I can't do this. I can't wait any longer. Emailed you, and you hit me right back and said, I'm back in the States. Let's do it. And we came up with this date, and now you're here. There's so much about what you represent, who you are, and your journey that is extraordinary. And I know that that's difficult to hear back, but it's just the truth of it. From your trials and tribulations with leukemia, and that's back in '85, right? So you're talking about 35 years, and math not my strong suit, but 35 years. And all through that time working and standing up and being a stalwart voice for the underrepresented at the same time. I guess my first question is honestly a broad one, but how do you find the fortitude to do that?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure finding the fortitude. Look, I mean, you started off talking about leukemia. So I was 24 years old. I guess I had already starred in Broadway in a couple of shows. Solomon's Child was a short-lived Broadway debut, a show that originally had cast a young actor who was really, really hot at the time, Keith Gordon, who used to get all the roles that I wanted. And they fired him. He quit. Whatever happened 4 days before opening, and I was hired. So I made my Broadway debut with 4 days of rehearsal, and I think we had about a 2-week run, and we closed. But I made a very close friendship with Anthony Zerbe. These are all going to be names from past eras. But Anthony's a great, great actor, really vivid in Papillon and any number of older films. I mean, old, the 1970s that I grew up on era of films, 70s into 80s, I guess. So I was 24 years old. I was understudying in Neil Simon's play Biloxi Blues. So they had hired me again to do Biloxi Blues. And I guess I was waiting to go on because the Jewish guy playing the Jewish role in the show was going to take Yom Kippur off. So, slide the Jewish understudy in, I guess less observant Jewish understudy. And I found out I had acute myeloid leukemia and there were very, very slim chances for survival. So how do you do that? I mean, in that moment at that time, and for the next 4 or 5 years, I mean, it's just putting one foot in front of the other. You either, I mean, you make a choice to roll up in a ball, or you make a choice to try to push through and do what you can. I know I'm leaving out an awful lot of subtleties there. The whole book, Time on Fire, is about the day-to-day blow by blow of encountering, first getting told that you have a supposedly incurable illness, and then finding that the incurable illness is being made much, much more difficult than it needs to be by the medical establishment and medical professionals who you thought would be there to help you get through. And they are revealed as being, in many instances, impediments and obstacles that need to be worked around, cajoled, or stampeded past. So yeah, their choices come into play then as well. Am I going to go through this as a well-behaved, cooperative person in a long line and enhance? At least I came to see it as an equation. That equaled enhancing the grim statistics that I've been quoting, or are you going to go through it in as an act of defiance and defy the obstacles that don't seem right and try to take on the system and refuse to cooperate with the forces lined up against you and see if that enhances your chances. And I'm gonna keep talking. I'm gonna say something else. What I realized is because we're talking about institutions now, and I think that's where we get some overlap into work that crosses over beyond healthcare. So I realized the hospital is an institution that is not devoted to the survival of any individual. It's devoted to the survival of the institution. And the job of the institution is to serve hundreds of individuals simultaneously. So your needs are not so high in terms of the institution. And if you want to get your needs served, you're going to have to find a way to get your needs met within an institution that is devoted to a different purpose, if that makes sense.
It makes complete sense. And I think that's the microcosm. Is that where you found your voice of speaking up for the underrepresented? Is that where you saw?
I think that was just speaking up for me. I was 24 years old. I thought I was due for. I mean, at 24 years old, I already thought that I had been under-awarded, and that I had been underpaid for what I was contributing as what I thought of as a brilliant professional. I hope it's clear I'm saying this with a lot of irony.
Right.
You know, I for whatever reasons, whatever my psychological background is, you know, I lived my late teens convinced that by the time I was 24 years old, I would have been long hailed as the equivalent of a Bob Dylan at that time was a figure of fascination for me, and that it wasn't that I didn't have genius. It wasn't that my genius was unrevealed. It was simply that it was unappreciated. I have very different views about those things now. But at 24, I was existing in a kind of I had already been quite a successful professional actor for about the last 7 years already. I started as a late teenager, and as I said, I was doing my third Broadway show at 24 years old, and you know, existing with a bit of a chip on my shoulder as the guy who still felt I hadn't quite gotten my due. And then to get torn out of that and told that basically it's probably all over, I definitely felt a very strong urge that I had to claw my way back, that I couldn't be interrupted or denied because there was more to do, more to prove. But it was all about me at that moment in time. It was, I shouldn't say that in the first instances, there were months and months, if not years, in hospital rooms, or just those moments you have when your day isn't distracting you anymore and you're lying in bed trying to go to sleep, but you start to ponder your existence and whether there's any safety or security to it whatsoever. And, you know, amplify that in whoever's listening in your own life by acute myeloid leukemia, and saying, well, there would also be value to this if I do nothing else in life, if I accomplish nothing else in life, simply existing as an example to others that what I was told was all but impossible can actually be done, would be of tremendous value and something worth marching through whatever hell I had to face to get through it and to the other side. So that did come into play. Well, it wasn't the first instant, but it did come into play, and was certainly a major, you know, inspirational message to myself, that the simple act of existence could be quite an example for others.
Yeah, sometimes existing in and of itself is defiance in and of itself, right?
And existing openly, because, you know, there are certainly many people who go through what I went through and you know, make the choice to keep it quiet. At that time, I couldn't have imagined that, but that is another way of coping and dealing.
So this the book that you mentioned, Time on Fire, My Comedy of Terrors, and the cover itself is worth the purchase alone. What a wonderful cover that was designed, and very, very smart in many ways. So then the journey becomes, and it has to be individual. It has to be you watching out and making sure that you're staying healthy physically, but also emotionally and mentally. That's so important on these healing journeys. So how far along does it become where you realize that not only existing is enough of defiance, but you start to speak out very, very vocally and very, very strongly for other folks as well? So was there an epiphany? Was it a slow moving realization?
No, it was based 98% on revenge.
I love it.
I mean, those 4 to 5 years were really hell, and it's tremendous that I'm less connected to the anger that I felt then. The second book, It's Only Temporary, is really about the tremendous amount of time it took for the emotional feelings in retrospect to go from rage to more gratitude. But when I emerged from that originally, I couldn't believe what I had been put through and how much more difficult it had been made than it needed to be. I mean, from, you know, the night of my diagnosis, I sat sobbing inconsolably in my apartment in the East Village in New York, and my parents were there. I mean, I'd been living independently for 7 years, and here they have their 24-year-old son sobbing inconsolably. They don't know what to do. we're being told that I don't know if it was a Thursday or a Friday, but I wouldn't be admitted to the hospital until Monday because we only admit emergencies on weekends. And when I asked if acute myeloid leukemia wasn't an emergency, I was told that yes, any other hospital would consider it an emergency, but we do things differently here. Just come to the emergency room if you start bleeding. Otherwise, have a good weekend, and we'll get started on Monday. To my father calling and saying, is it all right to give him a Valium? Because we just don't know. And the doctor telling him that he was abusing the privilege of having his home phone number. That's the first 24 hours. Then you're an inpatient in the hospital and you start asking questions, you start learning about, the treatment for these really, really dreadful blood cancers is you basically eradicate the patient's immune system with chemotherapy drugs. And so then infections are going to happen and you have to administer antibiotics as quickly as possible because there's no immune system. But these antibiotics were administered 3 and 4 hours late. There was a terrible nursing shortage in New York at the time. But, it's your ass on the line. You need the antibiotic. It can't be 3 or 4 hours late. And if you complain about these things, or if your girlfriend does, when nobody's there visiting you the next day, the nurses come around and tell you, we hear your girlfriend has an attitude problem and, that can really affect your care. Or you're told, why can't you be more like Andy down the hall? He comes around with us and helps make the beds. And, you start to realize that the care you're being given is conditional. You're being told, get with the program or, we're not really going to answer that call bell so quickly. And then it just, escalates and escalates from there. Eventually you have to have vein access implanted, in 2 ports come out of your chest and travel under the skin and go into a major vein in your neck so that they don't have to keep stabbing you and for taking blood and stuff. But those are prone to infection. And when it gets infected, I found myself waiting 4 days for a surgeon to come and remove it. And I'm complaining to my doctor again and again. And it became a shouting match. But, she said, Evan, I can't drag a 6'2" surgeon up here. They'll come when they're ready. And I would say, but, you're getting quality care. You're getting adequate care. And I would say, I would have to grill her like a cross-examiner, say, but I have an infection. These are often lethal. No one's coming to change it. How can you tell me I'm getting adequate care? You're telling me I'm getting adequate care simply because that's the best care the hospital can give me. And she said, yes, you're absolutely right about that. So I found all these conditions to be unacceptable. And my father, as part of the indulgences and placating of a most likely terminally ill son, I asked to get a laptop computer, and this was the early days of laptop computers. So it was like, it was the size of a large coffee table. And I typed some things and I wrote things and I didn't know what I was going to ever do with them. It was MS-DOS, and I think it had 5.25-inch floppy disks. And it was only upon getting out of the hospital and starting to reemerge in the theater community in New York, I started to go to a theater company where I had a lot of friends called Naked Angels. And they had a series that still goes on in New York and Los Angeles called Tuesday Nights at 9. And people would bring 10 minutes of whatever they were working on. And we're talking about, John Robin Bates, the playwright, Kenneth Lonergan, people who, were friends of mine back then, Frank Pugliese, Warren Leight, terrific playwrights. And now, screenwriters and Warren has now been the longtime executive producer of SVU. And I was, my big comeback after 4 to 5 years of this, I did get back on Broadway in a Neil Simon play during the first remission. I starred again in Brighton Beach Memoir, in Broadway Bound. And that's when the recurrence of leukemia happened, the expected recurrence. 80% of the cases have recurrences. Besides, being concerned about whether Neil Simon plays are carcinogenic, I had to start planning for the bone marrow transplant that I eventually had at Johns Hopkins Hospital in Baltimore, which then required a year of recovery time on its own. And the big comeback when I was close to 30 years old, after disappearing at 24, was being in the original cast of 6 Degrees of Separation. And one day going into Lincoln Center Theater, I realized that, maybe I had never owned a printer for that computer. And I brought these old floppy disks and I said, could these be printed out? And for the first time, I read the stuff that I had written in the hospital and thought, wow, this is kind of striking, shocking stuff. And I put 5 or so pages of it together and asked for a slot at the Naked Angels Tuesday night at 9. And I started to read there every week. And I came eventually to call it the oral history of me as told to myself. But I started doing this kind of extended soap opera of reading, most of the things being read there were screenplays and plays. It was unusual to have somebody reading prose, I guess you'd call it, or autobiographical prose. But I found that I was able to create precisely the experience that I wanted for the audience. I wanted people to laugh. The material was extremely caustic, very funny, and then to be plunged into horror over what they had just found themselves laughing at, and then to forget again and laugh again, and to just take them on this roller coaster over and over again. And the realization that I was able to do that and was doing it successfully was astonishing and made me want to do it more and more, but fueled tremendously by revenge. I wanted to publish a book. I wanted to publish a book telling people I had never seen a cancer or medical story told this way. I had never seen anybody accusing the medical professionals and system of what I had seen, of what I saw was outright cruelty. I saw indifference, incompetence, and sadism. And there was no shortage of any of them. And when I would tell people these stories, they seemed astonished, like they couldn't believe. And yet what I saw was that it was rampant. So eventually Naked Angels asked if I wanted to put together a full evening. And I did this read through with pages in my hand of 90 minutes of this story, which eventually became an off-Broadway play that I did at Second Stage Theater in New York. Still, all with the desire to get attention from the publishing community. I had never been a writer. I didn't have a literary agent. I thought some of these people are going to know me as an actor, and if I invite them to a theater, maybe they'll come. And then I got a contract to write the book for Little Brown and Company. And in 1996, that first book, Time on Fire, came out, and created a bit of a stir in the medical community. So to go back to your original question, that was all background. To go back to your question of when did it turn into any kind of activism, it was after doing the show at Second Stage and into the time of the book's publication, when suddenly I got invitations to perform this material and do the show at medical conferences and symposiums and medical schools and gatherings of giant, enormous health insurance conglomerates. 4,000 people at a hotel in Las Vegas. It was like Caesar's Palace, to conference rooms at a company, or auditoriums and cafeterias at healthcare facilities, to finally, on stage at Carnegie Hall with Bill Moyers as a moderator for Beth Israel Medical Center in New York. So I had this opportunity to do this, and I really, really wanted to. And I also got paid to do it, and I realized, I'm getting paid for one day to give this speech, to give this presentation. I'm getting paid more than the entire run of an off-Broadway play, which was what my bread and butter was back in those days. I was a theater actor, really. So I wound up getting paid to go to great groups of medical professionals and tell them how badly I had been treated. And this felt like the most amazing form of employment I could ask for. I was getting my revenge fantasies fulfilled. I was educating and opening their eyes. I was hopefully holding up a mirror to some of these people. I was having tons and tons of people come up to me and telling me, thank you for telling this story. This is exactly what I see every day when I go to work. And it's really important that somebody say it and say it out loud. And, I think we've all been places where there's tremendous pressure on the people who want to do the best job to not do it so well, because it puts pressure on the people who don't want to push themselves so hard to do things differently. And it exists, I think any organization is prone to it. The bigger the institution, the more the dangers. But to see that this existed even at institutions supposedly devoted to saving people's lives was startling to me at that time. And the response that I got to it was completely unexpected, but overwhelmingly meaningful and inspirational to me. And I really devoted my life to it for a while. It took quite a while before I was willing to come back and work for pennies at off-Broadway theaters again and do plays.
Now, you mentioned you went to these huge gatherings of medical professionals and institutions where it could be seen as you being thrown out there as a token, as let's have the appearance of having listened to this, and then let's just move forward status quo as things are. But I was really glad to hear, as you were telling the story, that folks would come up to you afterwards and say, "This is what I have to face. This is what we want to change." So it sounds like you were really affecting that progress, that evolution that you were hoping to see.
Well, I hope so. I mean, look, that's always a danger. I mean, tokenism, I don't even know if it was a word that I was acquainted with at that time. And it didn't occur to me that might be happening. I know I had my own self-protective instinct. The first place I got asked to give a performance outside of the theater in New York was Johns Hopkins Hospital, which I had very good things to say about. I mean, I used it as the foil to Sloan Kettering in New York. And one of the things about the book that I was proud of and that I insisted upon is that it was brand name specific. I had never seen anyone even talk about where they were treated and where they received medical care with brand name specificity. Like, why? And people would always say, "Well, I'm afraid I'd get sued." Well, I mean, if you're telling the truth, I mean, you shouldn't lose a lawsuit. And most people don't want to bring attention to something that's criticizing them if they're doing it accurately. So I didn't get that, and I wanted to break that mold, and so I did that. And then Johns Hopkins invited me to do it, and I said, "That's great, and now you can get in touch with the agent, and this will be the fee." And the fee was quite low at that time. But they said, "Oh, we were hoping that you would really do this as a donation." And I said, "Well, I mean, I paid the doctors who treated me. They didn't treat me as a donation. So it's actually really important to me that I get paid to come and appear and do what I do to tell the story to your executives and medical students." And they were really taken aback by that. And I mean, look, I had my own, naive makeup, and I've already confessed to, my overinflated sense of importance, and from my youth and young adulthood. So some of these things, in retrospect, to me seem, quite arrogant to me, as they did to them at the time. But I also think that it was completely valid what I was saying. I didn't even know that hospitals, were non-profit institutions. I mean, I just knew that the head of the hospital made hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. I didn't know anything about the non-profit nature of the pseudo non-profit nature of healthcare or any other institutions. So I just thought, I paid them, they're going to pay me, and then they did pay me. And then I had a price to quote other people, and it was really important to me to stand up for that. And but it just was my natural inclination. It wasn't as any kind of combating tokenism, is what I guess I meant to say.
No, but I mean, it's really important, and it's so striking how much of your journey, first, as I mentioned earlier, the whole idea of the institution of hospitals and that being a microcosm of the larger issue in our nation. And then also, this is very interesting because, again, this is also a very indicative of a lot of Black voices were talking about, 8 months ago when, we were knee deep in the pandemic already, and then the epidemic of systemic racism became an incredibly important issue in the country, thankfully. A lot of Black voices were talking about how they were asked to speak here or there, or lend their vision or their persona to something, but they weren't being compensated. And there was a huge movement of folks saying, you need to stand up and you need to make sure that your worth is assessed and valued and appreciated. And
Right.
it's important we do that, right?
Yes,
I mean,
I think so. Absolutely. There was another point I wanted to make that's kind of slipping by me at the time, so I'm going to take a sidetrack. Look, I'm a to anybody who walks past me on the street, I'm a white guy, and I walk through the world with the privileges that many of us learned and come to recognize a white guy has. I mean, in my own upbringing, I grew up as a culturally, socially Jewish family, non-practicing. Religion was not of importance to me or my family growing up. But still, I grew up in a bigoted small town area just north of Manhattan. It's an hour drive. My dad was a commuter, but there were maybe 4 Black kids at the school, so maybe 4 African American families. There was a slice of Jewish families that lived in that area, many of whom were commuters like my father, who worked in the advertising industry, illustrators, artists. My dad was a painter who opened an advertising agency. And, so the vitriol directed toward us as liberals, Jews, and presumed communists, that only could have been, unimaginably worse for the few Black kids that I knew in school was there, so it's something that I had witnessed and experienced to an extent that I guess people walking past me on the street and seeing me as a white guy of obvious privilege would have. So I went through the point I'm trying to make is I went through the medical experience probably as one of the more privileged people to enter that hospital, unless you were in the Frank Sinatra wing, which is where celebrities, go and have hotel room style service, whatever that might be. But what's also interesting is if you want to write about that, and I think it's a conundrum a lot of artists are looking at today, I had my experience and what I experienced there, and I'm writing about it. And what I saw was that the doctors, the physicians were kind of every international stripe, but the Black and brown Americans were the people who were the nursing assistants and the people cleaning the rooms. And so if you're trying to write about that and describe it, both in book and screenplay form, there's a screenplay adaptation of Time on Fire. It's been unproduced and it's probably unproducible at this point, not for this reason, but there's one Black character that speaks 2 words, but that was what the world was there. I mean, some of the nursing assistants, some of the African American and Spanish nursing assistants would come around. There's one guy that said to me in a lilting island voice, he said, "It's my job, man, to go see the patient after the," and I'm even embarrassed because of today's world to do the voice because a white guy doing the African Islander voice. But he said, it's my job, man, to go see the patient after the doctor gets through with him, so I can tell the patient he don't have to die like the doctor tell him he do. And I think it's so beautiful that this, the most working class guy in the joint is the guy who came around and encouraged me and encourages other patients. But it's very difficult to give that a representation in a film today because you're creating a token in the film to represent the token of that community or simply what that person was allotted to at that time in that institution. If that makes sense. I don't know if
that makes tremendous sense, and the fact that you give voice to that is why I think that your voice is so important, that you can recognize that. You recognize your privilege, but you also recognize that during this whole journey, your privilege didn't serve you, and that you can imagine how much worse it would be for someone with even less. but also
Yeah, I mean, it probably did serve me. That's the thing. As bad as it was for many people, it's probably much, much worse. I was introduced by doctors to other doctors as, oh, this guy's a big shot. He's a big shot Broadway star guy. I even did have some insulation, and still it was made tremendously difficult. But look, this is everybody probably in their work life, I don't know, work life, marriage, wherever, even as I tell these stories, which I don't tell very often anymore, I think, oh man, I mentioned Sloan Kettering. What if I get sick with something and I need them now? So we're all prone to the power dynamic of needing something that the people in a position to grant it to you have. And how much do you stand up for yourself, or how much do you cater to the way they want you to behave in order to be granted access? How much do you take them on and stand up and say, no, you can't treat me this way? How much are you willing to risk being flattened by them? I think we've all seen that in terms of our government over the last few years.
and that's
as we've been thrown back into, we've been thrown back into things that we thought. And again, I say that we thought, we're dealt with decades ago. But as I say that, there are people listening to this who are saying, yeah, maybe you thought it had been dealt with decades ago, because you're a privileged white guy walking down the street. I know it hadn't been dealt with decades ago because I'm dealing with it every day. So we know what we're exposed to, we know what we're experienced, and if we're sensitive enough, we can have empathy to a certain extent for people who see a lot more. But I can only confess to the knowledge that I'm blind to more than I know as well.
See, and that's the dot I was looking to connect. That's what I want to talk about with you next. Is for the past few years you've been incredibly vocal. But before we get to that, we do have some folks in the comment section I did want to kind of highlight. Carol Watchler, who is, full disclosure, our community outreach coordinator here at the center, a spry woman in her mid-70s, breast cancer survivor. I put that in this context because her comment, I think, needs that context. She says, I so congratulate you for your tenacity, and then says, that is so very clear and an important story to keep telling. So we want to thank you for that, Carol. And then Cynthia says, when you were talking about the hospital, you're saying, this makes me so furious. So there's a lot of folks listening and empathizing, understanding, and supporting. But let's talk.
I just want to throw in, in September, October of last year, Time on Fire had been presented 25 plus years earlier in New York. And I tried to weave together the stories of Time on Fire. I felt it was still valid, and so I thought, was there a way to tell this today? It's different to have a 26-year-old, 29-year-old, whatever I was. I say, no, I guess I did it in New York. I was actually 32, sorry. A 32-year-old, 4 years out of the hospital telling it versus, a 59-year-old, 58, 59-year-old guy telling it 30 years later. And the book, It's Only Temporary, tells the story of my marriage and eventual conception of my daughter, who statistically speaking is an even less likely occurrence than my own survival. So it's a great story. And I tried to weave it together and did 4 performances in New York, really self-funded, but at a group called United Solo that does a solo theater festival. And it had problems, it needed work, but there were a couple of theaters that were interested in giving some time toward development, and then COVID happened. And we're thrown into a world where, rightfully so, medical professionals have become heroes once again. And nobody's going to want to hear this story about how badly many of them were in the 1980s. But those people who were so uncaring and incompetent and sadistic still exist. And for all the heroes that we're seeing through this pandemic, those lesser and sadistic people are still there in the equation. So there has to be a way, while heralding the heroism, to still speak out and make sure that those lesser individuals can't hide behind the heroic ones. because there are still people who are maximizing their power and abusing it in the medical world and everywhere. And I don't mean that to undercut any of the people who were behaving gallantly, but there are people who are making patients pay a price to get access for their heroism, is I think what I'm trying to say.
Well, what you're asking, friend, is something that our country especially does not really understand, which is nuance, which is, that it's either this or that, so they're heroes, and then we can't talk about the difficult aspects of it.
Right.
With defunding the police and looking at our, our systems that we have in place. Of course, there are a tremendous amount of police officers who are there to protect and serve and take their duty seriously and to the heart. But there are also a great many who do not. And there has to be a conversation. And those conversations are very difficult to have in this country because people don't want to have them because they are difficult.
Yeah. So, I was defiant in confronting these people and in telling my story and standing up and getting it told. But I had the benefits of, I have to give credit to. I mean, I grew up in a what could be, mocked as a typically liberal Jewish household at the time. I mean, my parents' record collection was Frank Sinatra and Barbra Streisand and Pete Seeger and Harry Belafonte. And, my dad attended the 1963 March on Washington. I have the year right.
Yep.
So, I came from a background where at least my eyes were open to the fact that, you have some responsibility to try to. It was more the message that I was given and that I walked through life was our lives as a family were improved and enhanced by the nation serving all its people better. So if you see injustice, it's your responsibility to try to correct it, not simply for yourself and your own experience, and not simply for the benefit of the people or group that you're trying to assist at that time, but that because inequality and inequity costs you. It doesn't just harm the people victimized by it. It harms the oppressor as well. And I was lucky enough then as a young adult to work on plays with Athol Fugard, the author of Master Harold and the Boys, and that's what that play is about. I mean, it's about a 15-year-old white South African kid who has a miserable family life with a terrible racist alcoholic father, and his best friends are the two black South Africans who work for his father in the little cafe. And when he's miserable enough, he spits in their face and ruins the only friendships that he has because he can. So I was lucky enough at least to be schooled in those principles that it's being out of your view and not affecting you is a fallacy. That being out of your view does not equal doesn't affect you, and that the society isn't right until the society addresses these things. So I think that fueled it probably fueled my sense of privilege, but also my sense of feeling like it is my place to speak up and to say when something's not right. In fact, it's my duty and my obligation, I guess, is what I felt. If I've seen this and I recognize it, then it has to be shared and it has to be told and exposed and examined. Is how I felt.
So it was an easier equation for you back in the day when you were a Broadway actor speaking up and out and writing that book and being so incredibly overtly critical and naming names was not as much of a risk, but not as much of a risk as now. In the past couple of years, you've been incredibly vocal in your criticism and your anger toward our administration, toward a lot of things that are going on in our country. Was there a consideration for you of how it would affect your career? because this is, being so vocal is something that can lead to you losing this role or not being in this series or not getting this movie, whatever it may be. As liberal as everybody assumes Hollywood is and media is, it's really not. There's really a lot of folks making the real decisions that are not so much. And we know that these kind of, especially when it's so, what's difficult about what you say is it's intelligent. It's not just mouthing off. It's thoughtful, it's passionate, and it's everything that they despise because it can't be discounted.
Yeah. I don't know what else to say to that except that I guess I just don't know how else to be. What you're saying, you're not describing something that's unthought about to me, but it just doesn't. I don't see how you just sit quietly by and go, because look, the roles that I haven't gotten because I've been vocal, or I won't get because I'm vocal, the schools my daughter won't get into, if they look at my social media page, I don't know who they are, and I don't know what those costs might be. I can't see a graph that shows what was withheld. But I'm doing okay, and I'm not going to live my life, inside some kind of a sanitized, sealed zone, keeping my thoughts and feelings about the world around me to myself in order so that I might benefit in ways that I can't even measure and don't even know if they come into play or not, in order so that I might get to associate with people that, if we really laid it out, I would find despicable. So, for wanting to withhold it if I hadn't kept my mouth shut. So, yeah, I mean, if you showed me a pile of dollars that I didn't earn and could show me the glowing glory that was withheld, I would feel that sense of loss. But since I can't see it and can't experience it other than something ephemeral and theoretical, I guess I choose to inspire myself with and congratulate myself for doing the right thing, because that's what it is.
I think that there is. Let me put a really fine point on it. I'm
sorry, I'm going to interrupt you for just a second, because when I say doing the right thing, what I will say about the last few years and even this last election, there's nothing right and correct about Donald Trump receiving 70 million and more votes from American citizens. And I'm not gonna play the role of pretending that it's really okay that you just expressed your opinions. There are curdled and inhuman viewpoints. Yes, they're viewpoints, but I'm not going to pretend that they're all acceptable. I think what I've learned over the last few years is that there are always going to be a shockingly large percentage of people who have rancid beliefs. And my feelings may be different a week from now, and they may be different today than they were a week ago. But at this moment, I think, the best you can do with those people who with rancid beliefs is you make it clear that they are unacceptable. They are not acceptable. Yeah, they're not socially acceptable. They are not accepted here. They're not accepted anywhere other than in your dark basement among the friends who never speak them out loud in public. And that's really how things were kept for quite a while. And that you can't actually get into all those basements and disinfect people's minds, but you can make it costly to air rancid beliefs having to do with imposing inequality on people. So yeah, I think what it takes is enough people saying, you are entitled to your opinion, you are entitled to your viewpoint, yours is wrong, and look at all of us who say yours is wrong and how few of you say it's right. So you're going to keep quiet and you're going to hide that in public. Because I don't know that you can cure it. But now we're living in an age where people have been told for the last 5 years, no, it's good. It's good. Come out and play. And you've seen that the numbers have grown, and the people who feel confident enough to speak atrocities out loud and to back an atrocity of an administration, because they agree with it, or just because it like cuts them a tax break, or what, I don't know. I don't know what the deal is with two communities in Beverly Hills, going more for Donald Trump in 2020 than they did in 2016. But that is an atrocity to me. So yeah, some of those people won't hire me, I guess. But
that's what I was going to say, is to really put a fine point on it. And I know this may be embarrassing to hear, and I hope it's not. I hope you can take it in, because that is a rare quality. I mean, there are folks who have these opinions and feel this way that will stifle them and not voice them, even though they could have a tremendous amount of influence because they want to make the money, or they want to be celebrated, or they want to be on the cover of a magazine. And
right. And I do accept that. I accept that, and thank you for saying it. And I have a small amount of pride about it. But I really think it's the very least that can be done, and I do the very least that I can do. So I say that to make it clear that I'm not. I can't accept too much of that, because I'm not on the front lines fighting the fights. I'm not putting my body on the line. I'm not the one who has a target on my back when I walk down the street, and I'm not the one who's been in the streets doing that stuff, and I'm not even in offices organizing it, and I'm not devoting my life to it. I'm here with my family, and I'm pursuing my career and my interests. I thank you for recognizing what I do, and I believe the extent that I do is the least that anybody should do.
And that's why it's so extraordinary, is that you don't say, hey, I'm doing this, and then I'm doing this, and look how great I am because I'm doing it. And there are many celebrity voices doing that as well, which totally undercuts the message. What you do, and by the way, a shout out to your social media presence. Social media, the bane of my existence, tools of the devil, but necessary, especially in this modern world. And you have a very distinct voice. There are only a few celebrities that I follow, that the center follows, and you're clear, you're concise, and you're not. There are some rants and raves which are great because they're focused and they're laser sharp. There's some drop the mic moments for sure. But a lot of your feed, a lot of what you do is about amplifying others. And that's what people forget as well. So that's the other part of it. And I would have loved to get more into that. I knew that our hour was going to go fast. But you're amplifying others as much as you're raising your own voice. And both are important. And I think that equality of that is why it's special and why it needs to be heard and seen.
Right, and I'm glad to see that you're having Talia on your show. I don't know her, but I just know her through Twitter, and have tried to amplify her book as well. And it's amazing that it made that list. And I'm behind. I need to read it myself, but I think that's great.
Yeah, we're looking forward. That's going to be a great conversation, because again, it's one of those things where she's doing something that's so incredibly horrific. And for those of you who don't know, we're talking about culture warlord. Yeah. She actually went undercover and, went on dating sites for white supremacists and went to meetings and even, and all these types of things, but does it with a sense of humor and understanding that is rare. So we're looking forward to that conversation. And I'll definitely let her know that, again, you are someone who looks to her work too as inspiration. I want to thank you so much. This conversation, I expected a lot from you, and you did not disappoint, my friend, and that's the truth.
All right, thank you. It was a pleasure, and thank you. Because I didn't know the center existed. And in fact, you know, the name Bayard Rustin, I said, well, I know the name. I know it's a figure from the civil rights era, but I could not have told you what his particular contributions had been. I didn't know, you know, his iconic status as an openly gay man. And so you've opened my eyes, and I did some reading, and I have more to do. And congratulations to you guys in the center, and thanks for opening my eyes to aspects that I wasn't aware of.
That means a great deal, my friend. Thank you for saying so. We'd love to have you back. We'd love to talk about the future as we do transition, and hopefully what that means and what that means to your Twitter feed. I'm very concerned.
Our entire recent attempt to escape the United States of America that failed.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about that. Thank you. If you don't mind, if I could just ask you, will you hang out for a minute as I say goodnight to our community? I'd love to say goodnight to you personally. So just hang out for a minute in the queue, in the green room, as it were. Thank you again, everybody. Evan Handler, go follow his Twitter feed. It's absolute fire. This is one of the two books. A beautiful, beautiful book. They're both wonderful, and I highly recommend them. So consider purchasing those. And Chris, our wonderful dedicated volunteer, has put those links up in the comment section for all y'all. So Evan, thank you so much for your time. We'll see you again. Be well, my friend.
Okay, thanks.
So my friends, what a wonderful evening. What an inspirational conversation. Something new that we haven't talked about in our almost 200 episodes now. The idea of the broken dynamic of the hospital system, the institution, and I'm so glad to hear that personal journey that is so exponential and so very much relatable to all of us in many, many ways. So Evan Handler, thank you so much for being with us. We look forward to having him back, and we look forward to seeing all of y'all back. I know there are a lot of folks watching. I'm seeing the numbers spike, because I know Evan has a lot of fans. So thanks for being with us. Those of you that are here for the first time, we really appreciate you coming out to our community, and hope you'll come back. Tomorrow night, we have the delightful Jill Sobule. Next week, we have Absolute Fire Week with Kurt Anderson and Patton Oswalt and Lieutenant Governor of Pennsylvania, John Fetterman. So come back to us 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. We really appreciate your time, energy, and spirit that you spend with us. So until tomorrow, about 22 hours and 55 minutes. Please take care of each other. Take care of your families, chosen or otherwise. And especially these days, please do take care of yourselves as well. Much love and respect, everybody. Thanks so much.
We need in every community a group of angelic troublemakers.